work. He's a graduate, he's been out of work for a year or 2 years. 50% unemployment in the north of Spain, where I was as well, of young people, of all their hopes and aspirations. The struggle that's taking place now of school kids to get qualifications to go to university. And then their hopes shattered when they come out of university because they can't get a job which meets their needs, but also is alongside of what the training that they've had. That's produced an explosive ingredient, which even if we weren't there, will produce eruptions, will produce uprisings of the new generation in the period that we're going into. But what is wrong with Trotsky's demand in the transitional program? The death agony of capitalism. We say to the capitalists, you give us work on decent wages or full maintenance. In other words, the state has the responsibility of giving full maintenance, a decent living standard and so on. You can't do that, share out the work without loss in pay. All of these demands will come to the fore in the next period, and we will be the ones who will be putting it forward. Now, how does this relate to the situation in Europe and the situation in Britain? We'll have a little time to comment on this before I sit down. Europe is a lake of petrol at the present time. Take Greece and the agonies of Greece. I first went to Greece in 1974 when we established the Greek section of the CWI. It was a paradise compared to the situation that exists in Greece at the present time, where the number of, it's bad enough in Britain, where the number of people per patient, the number of nurses per patient or the number of patients per I'll get it right eventually. The number of patients per doctor and nurses is astronomical. And also 50% of the population of Greece is living on the pensions of the previous generation. In other words, whole families and whole societies live on the basis of the pension. And that pension is being cut. And it's being cut in Britain, it's being cut in Spain, it's being cut, if you like, in capitalism overall. But nevertheless, we have a serious economic position in the north of Europe. We have a recession, we have a depression along the lines of the 1930s in southern Europe, and that is a guarantee for social explosions which will pose the possibility, as I will explain later on today, of revolution or of counter-revolution. And that brings us to the position in Britain. I only have a little bit of time to mention the situation in Britain, the colossal widening in inequality. You don't need me to remind you of the figures. This is tailor-made for a socialist and radical message. In the last couple of weeks, we've had Robert Blatchford, who was a chronicler for socialism at the beginning of the 20th century, the last part of the 19th century, being raised even in the Financial Times. The situation in Britain is extremely volatile. But unfortunately, the stewards of the labour movement, those at the top, have made an absolute mess of it. Brexit, for instance, it's a criminal farce, quite honestly, what has happened in relation to this. If Jeremy Corbyn and the left would have maintained the position that we had together in 1975, when as a member of the Labour Party Young Socialists, we marched to Trafalgar Square. I don't know whether Ticky and Mike were around at that. Maybe it was just a little bit beyond when they joined the party. Maybe not, I don't know. But we marched to, they look old enough. But when we marched to Trafalgar Square, you know, we mobilised 2,500 behind our banner. No to capitalist Europe, yes to a socialist Europe. Jeremy Corbyn, he wasn't an MP then, Jeremy Corbyn and others joined that. We got support in the Labour movement. People like Eric Heffer, who was a Labour MP from Liverpool, had the position initially of wanting to support a pro-common market position. Our position is very simple. This is a capitalist project, and we say about the EU today, how can any active member of the Labour movement, or inactive for that matter, any worker conscious of what is to their benefit, vote for a neoliberal project, the aim of which is to drive down living standards, and not only that, would prevent Jeremy Corbyn carrying through nationalisation, including of the railways, prohibited under the EU constitution itself. You'd have to break from the EU. So when the referendum came, we said oppose it, not on a capitalist basis. Enoch Powell was also campaigning against the EU in 1975. No platform with Tories. So Tony Benn made a mistake in relation to that. We said an independent working class campaign was the only way forward. And really what we have now, Jeremy Corbyn, it's a tragedy what can happen. He can be removed in the next period. The right hope that they can reverse the position. And Corbyn himself is actually put forward a 0% strategy. It satisfies nobody. It neither satisfies the working class, nor does it satisfy the employers. You can't mollify the Remoaners. You can't mollify those who voted against the EU. There's an element here in the north of what we saw in the Scottish referendum. Labour has lost Scotland. In the north, it's not a national question, but there's enormous regional resentment that that lot in London don't understand what we've had to put up with and the situation that we face. That's why significant sections, that wasn't just in the north, it was a national development, voted, surprisingly, in opposition to the pundits and the contempt with which they've been held by the kind of meritocracy of London and so on. It's fueling this enormous revolt from below. And therefore we have going into the by-elections this week a kind of 0% strategy by those around Jeremy Corbyn himself. He's quite a decent bloke. He wanted to do the right thing.